There, baby.
I know what floats A's boat. Remember this nigga?
I'm not trying to pull over to the side.
Right around here. Why we got
kind of hoe? You got
fuck?
paper?
What? I'm right here.
What's poppin', Kermit? Aight, nigga. You clean now. That motherfucker's gone, he's not coming back, B. I laid the murder game down, let niggas know we not fucking around, man.
This notorious drug lord, Alpo Martinez, shot and killed on the streets of Harlem. He was a larger-than-life figure who seemed to defy death. Fox 5's Lisa Evers goes over who he was and why he might have had a long list of enemies.
He was one of the city's most notorious drug dealers, famous since the 1980s for his murderous ways and mountains of cash and drugs, immortalized in dozens of rap songs and the movie Paid in Full. But it all came to an end for Alpo Martinez right here on the streets of Harlem, right where it all began.
His name was Alberto Geddes Martinez, aka Alpo Martinez, aka Poe, aka Abraham G. Rodriguez, but mostly known as Alpo. Now, this is a guy who started selling drugs at the age of 14 in Harlem in the 80s to end up being charged with 14 counts of murder along with other charges by the time he got arrested in November of 91. Now, Alpo was a fascinating and larger-than-life figure. At one point, the type of individual whose very name invoked fear and hate at the same time. Alpo was called a lot of things throughout the years: rat, snake, playboy, and there's some validity in those titles. But there's one thing I never heard too many people call Alpo, and that's a product of his environment. You see, for you to fully understand Alpo's story, you need to understand the time, era, and environment Alpo was exposed to. Now, what we know as crack today originated in the early 80s. It had a number of different names at first: freebase, rock, and also ready rock. By the mid-80s, the term crack rock / crack became popular because of the cracking noise it would make when smoked. With crack came addiction, money, and violence. Extreme violence. Violence that rocked the inner city to its core.
Queens.
Instead out here, pow, 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 4 shots.
Rookie police officer Edward Byrne was actually hit 5 times in the head, executed by a squad of thugs acting on orders from jailed crack enforcer Howard Pappy Mason. Mason wanted to show police and the community who was really ruling the streets. Housing police were trying to take back the projects from crack gangs in places like Red Hook, Brooklyn, even offering gun amnesty programs back then. Yet the homicide rate hit an all-time high of 2,245.
Patrol of Restaurant Row in the Theater District is in critical condition tonight with stab wounds. He was hospitalized following a battle last night between the Guardian Angels and alleged drug dealers in the neighborhood. Helen
stuck him in the head, stuck him in the chest, slashed another Guardian Angel next to him, Dion White, attempted to stab a third.
New York City police are investigating the mass murder of 10 people found shot to death late today in a Brooklyn home.
The front line in the war on crack.
Search warrant!
Houses and streets in big city slums. Every day, in city after city, local, state, and federal police battle pushers selling crack, the cheap, highly addictive form of cocaine. Big part that prosecutors say today's crack gangs are far more dangerous than the crime syndicate.
It seemed to me that from what I knew about the old gangs of Al Capone, that there was most often a reason for people being hurt, maimed, or killed. Here, if they're in the wrong place at the wrong time, that can be enough reason in and of itself.
They use violence and intimidation to discourage competitors and to keep gang members in line.
Money, money, money!
The profits were staggering, up to $1 million a week. Drug racket here since 1983, when it replaced another gang which had been shut down by the police. The other gang sold heroin and cocaine powder. Police confiscated $5.5 million in cash at the Detroit airport. It was on its way to Florida to ensure the flow of cocaine for the crack trade in Detroit. Jim Cummins, NBC News, Detroit.
Cops
cops on the run, criminals running from them. It's just another Sunday in South Jamaica. The police ran a check on this car. It came up a 16, a stolen vehicle. The man tried to take the car in front of 6 cops. The cops won. But in this part of Queens, the cops don't always win.
Just as you saw stolen cars.
1111. How bad is this place?
I'd say it's bad.
Largely affecting black and brown communities, opportunities were scarce, crime was at an all-time high, and poverty was very prevalent. Now a little bit more about the drug itself. In the 1970s and 80s, there was a massive influx of cocaine from South America into the US. So much so that there was a surplus in the market, meaning there was so much fucking coke that they had to find a new way to make more money from the increased supply. And selling more product to a wider range of buyers would help solve that problem. And that's where crack came in. You see, crack cocaine is cheaper than powdered cocaine. The lower entry price of small crack rocks now made it more accessible to financially disadvantaged communities. In the early 1980s, the US was still in a Cold War with Russia, and anti-communism sentiment was strong. President Reagan at the time promised to assist anti-communist insurgencies around the world.
How do you tell a communist? I said, well, it's someone who reads Marx and Lenin. And how do you tell an anti-communist? And it's someone who understands Marx and Lenin.
And for a period of time, the CIA trained and assisted groups fighting against communists abroad. Now in Nicaragua, there was one such group, Meet the Contras. Now they were battling a communist group called the Sandinistas. They were backed by a guy by the name of Fidel Castro. Ever heard of him? Now the Contras, they were funded by the US, and take a wild guess where the funding came from, like the actual money. Yep, you guessed it. The illicit and illegal drug trade.
I will tell you, Director Deutsch, as a former Los Angeles police narcotics detective, that the agency has dealt drugs throughout this country for a long time.
Say yes to your life. And when it comes to drugs and alcohol, just say no.
Now, why is this important when it comes to Alpo's story? Just follow me. It'll all make sense in the end. Now back to Alpo. Alpo Martinez was born on June 8, 1966 in Harlem, New York. Alpo grew up in a single-parent home along with 3 siblings, 2 sisters and a brother. He grew up in the East River projects known as the East Side. His building was on 105th and 1st Avenue, Spanish Harlem. He started selling drugs at a young age. Some say 14, others say he was in the streets by the time he was 12. Either way, by 14, he was a known hustler on the east side of Harlem. He quickly made a name for himself. He was known to be charming, intelligent, and ambitious. In New York City, there's a program called the Fresh Air Fund. It offers disadvantaged youths in the inner cities the opportunity to go to summer camp and to also spend time with privileged, well-off families. Alpo was part of that very program, and even they saw a change in Alpo, a big change.
His mother, I think, asking if he could come up here.
When he came up the last time and we asked him what trouble he was in, eventually when he told us, he said he was a runner, and we, I think he said that was carrying drugs or something from one place to another.
Alpo started as a runner, but he definitely didn't plan on remaining one. Alpo was known to be up bright and early and be the first one on the block, even in freezing weather, to catch the fiends early and make his money. This was a kid who went from robbing people and snatching pocketbooks to selling heroin packets. He eventually met a local gangster by the name of Randy Love, who ultimately became his mentor. Now, Randy was known to be extremely aggressive and had a fearsome reputation in New York City. And it is said that it was Randy that instilled this killer instinct in Alpo. See, Alpo didn't start off as a drug dealer. He was known to be a stick-up kid. And under the tutelage of Randy, he was a very effective one. But eventually, Alpo would make a name for himself and run into an individual by the name of AZ Faison, who was a wholesale cocaine dealer in Harlem making $40,000 to $50,000 a week at the time. AZ and Alpo had a mutual friend by the name of Rich Porter, who was actually incarcerated at the time of Alpo and AZ meeting. But Rich would vouch for Alpo and tell AZ to work with Alpo. When Rich came home, he was put back in position by AZ, and all three of them were doing business with each other. Now, for you to fully understand the mindset and attitude of these young men, keep in mind the notable and infamous figures they grew up around, hearing stories about. Some of these men went on to have whole movies made on them. There's a gangster story in every corner in Harlem. Flash and flair is culture, and money is king. And Alpo, Rich, and AZ all planned on carving out their own piece of Harlem. Things were functional, and everyone was making money, but that wouldn't last.
2:30 this morning, when police in the Bronx were called to the Sagamore Apartments at 167th Street and the Grand Con.
August 21st, 1987, AZ would be shot 9 times in a robbery at his aunt's house in the Bronx. The apartment was actually used as a stash house. 3 people would lose their lives, and 3 others, including AZ, would be left in critical condition. But luckily he survived. The assailants responsible would be quickly captured, as AZ would be able to identify one of them as 28-year-old Kevin Clark, his sister's ex-boyfriend. Kevin would be arrested not too long after the incident. The other suspects, Henry Bolden and Ronald Timmons, were also picked up by the police, charged and convicted relatively quick. Now, with AZ out of commission for the time being, that now left Rich and Alpo, and it was business as usual for these two. Only difference is now, everybody was doing their own thing. Rich continued hustling in Harlem, and Alpo, on the other hand, he had different plans. Washington, D.C. You see, Alpo Martinez, being the socialite and playboy dad he was, he spent a lot of time outside of Harlem, unlike a lot of his peers. And one day at a party at Virginia Beach, he would run into some individuals from Washington, D.C., who took a liking to him. He started frequenting the parties and events in the nation's capital, and would eventually meet a young woman by the name of Karen, who he would begin a relationship with eventually. She would further influence him to make the move to D.C., and to also add, there was a shit ton of fucking money to be made down there.
Now, keep in mind, Washington, D.C. as we know it today is nothing like what it was back then. Washington, D.C. back then was murder capital of the United States of America. They were the undisputed champions of killing. You understand? For every 100,000 residents in Washington, D.C., 80 would get killed. On average. Just to put that in perspective, some of the most dangerous cities in America today, St. Louis, Baltimore, Memphis, have you, don't even come close. Some of them a little bit, but none of them top the violence back then. None of them, and that was due to the crack epidemic, retaliatory killing, people defending drug turfs, because there was a lot of money being made back then, and it was serious. It was serious business. But hey, you don't got to take my word for it.
This is a daily occurrence on the streets of Washington, D.C. Plainclothed and uniformed police swoop down on people suspected of selling drugs.
You just sell syringes and needles? You sell all clean new ones?
A familiar scenario, the execution of the young man who drove this car. Reportedly, he stole money from drug dealers. 4 men riddled him with bullets while he waited at a traffic light at midday. Several innocent people have been hit by drug dealers' gunfire, but Washington's mainstream bastions and affluent neighborhoods largely have been immune to the violence. The city's drug-related murders have included children as young as 12. Children often have been used as drug couriers. Not only are Washington's drug dealers apparently more ready to kill, police say they use the most sophisticated weapons. This machine gun, test-fired for us by Washington police, was confiscated from drug suspects. So were these weapons. D.C. police have captured a record number of guns, close to 600, since January 1st.
It's serious, dead serious. It's dangerous business out here. It's a multi-million-dollar business in Washington.
It's that kind of money that drives the drug wars. These are the drugs that make the millions Washington drug dealers are fighting over. The powerful hallucinogen PCP, a liquid often sold to dealers in innocent-looking bottles. They sprinkle it on marijuana and sell it. Crack, the cocaine derivative that's fast replacing PCP as the most popular drug on the Washington street market. The Washington market is particularly profitable and attractive to out-of-town dealers because drugs in Washington are in short supply and demand is great.
Young black youth today to please leave the drugs up. No, I don't want any mother going through what I'm going through. That was my firstborn. He didn't even live to see his 24th birthday.
No time that I see any drugs, using any drugs, or have any knowledge of any drugs.
That was Mayor Marion Barry of the city of Washington, D.C. He got picked up in a sting operation. Take a wild guess what he was doing.
Smoking cocaine.
You smoking crack.
He was sentenced to 6 months in a medium security prison in Pennsylvania in October of '91.
I apologize to our citizens. I apologize to the country for putting our city into this kind of situation.
Yeah, just to give you an idea how fucked up that place was. Yeah.
Back in Harlem, he had an operation out of an establishment called the Jukebox. AC handed it over to him because of how problematic it was dealing with stick-up kids and law enforcement. Alpo gladly took it, but it soon became a hassle for him as well. He would eventually hand it over to some local dealers and made his mind up to go to DC. He would mix and mingle with the locals and eventually establish himself as a serious dealer in DC. He would befriend two individuals in particular, Garrett Terrell, aka Big Head Gary, and Wayne Perry, aka Silk. Now back in Harlem, Rich Porter and his entire family would be devastated. December 5th, 1989, 12-year-old Donald Porter, little brother of Rich Porter, would be kidnapped while on his way to school on West 134th Street, merely blocks away from his house. Later on that very day, the family receives a phone call from Donnell's kidnappers. They let it be known, yes, he has been kidnapped, and they would call them back for further instructions. And they made it very clear, under no circumstances do they contact the police. They then demanded a $500,000 ransom for Donnell's safe return. By December 6th, just a day after the kidnapping, Rich would be able to talk them down to a $350 ransom instead of the $500,000. Now remember, this is 1989. Just for context, $500,000 then is equivalent to $1.3 million today, and $350 close to $1 million. This is some serious money we're talking about here. The family would get another call and was told to go to McDonald's on 125th Street and Broadway and look under the sink. A friend of the family did as instructed. They went to that McDonald's, went to the bathroom, and looked under the sink. They found a coffee can. They brought it back, they opened it, and in that can was Donnell's right index finger, 2 of his rings, and a cassette tape of 12-year-old Donald Porter begging for his life and pleading with his family to deliver the money or else he's gonna lose his life. He also said, "I love you, mommy, and tell Pat I love her." Pat, short for Patricia, was his aunt, Rich's sister. Now Pat, in hearing this, grabs the can along with the tape and Donnell's finger and bolts straight to the police station. Eventually the phone calls ended and the kidnappers stopped reaching out. Now Rich, while trying to pull ransom money together to get Sonny back, had a big break. Introducing Richard Simmons, aka Fritz, aka the Consignment King. This was Rich's supplier, and on hearing what was going on, he gave Rich 30 kilos of cocaine in order to get the money for Donald's ransom. Now Rich at this time was being closely monitored by law enforcement, as you would expect. The police were familiar with him, they knew who he was and what he was about. So he decided to recruit help. And on January 3rd, 1990, he met up with none other than Alpo. January 4th, Orchard Park in the Bronx, a homeless man will be collecting cans and he will stumble across a body. Police and paramedics will call, and it will be a young black male with multiple gunshot wounds to the head. It would be identified as Richard Porter. You see, Alpo, on hearing that Rich was fronted 30 kilos of cocaine, he immediately planned on killing Rich and making that money, well, that cocaine, his. And he recruited the help of DC hustler, Big Head Gary, and they both did just that.
Did I kill Rich? And yes, I killed Rich. Why did I kill him? It wasn't personal. It was business.
The Porter family had no way of paying the ransom, and in late January, their worst fears would become a reality. The kidnappers, knowing that Rich is now dead, knew that the family was not going to be able to come up with the ransom money. So they beat little Donnell Porter to death and packed him inside of trash bags. His body would be found only a mile away from where Rich was discovered. It would eventually come to light, years later, who was responsible for Donnell Porter's death. Clarence Preacher Heatley, a notorious gangster who operated in Harlem and the Bronx, known for murder, extortion, torture, and pretty much every crime known to man. He ran a crew of killers dubbed the Preacher Crew, who would willingly carry out his dirty work. But the most sickening revelation in this entire situation was that the person who orchestrated the kidnapping was none other than John Apple Porter, Donnell and Rich's maternal uncle. Apple, a known junkie and a low-level associate of the Preacher Crew, was secretly and at times openly jealous of his nephew's success. He would end up serving a 20-year prison sentence and eventually released in 2018. Preacher allegedly didn't sanction the kidnapping, but he eventually went along with it. And it was also said he detested Apple because Apple was out here kidnapping his own family. Either way, Preacher wasn't any better than anyone, morally. Ultimately, Preacher would be sentenced to 225 years to life after his entire crew was indicted, and he would plead out to 13 murders. Now, Alpo didn't have anything to do with Donnell's kidnapping or murder, but at the time, the feds didn't notice. Alpo was wanted for Rich's murder and also for Donnell's kidnapping and murder. And with that being said, Alpo at the time made up his mind to commit to DC fully, which he did. He packed up shop and he fully committed. Now in DC, Alpo slowly started his takeover. Step 1, recruiting young men who already had an established reputation in the city. Now Alpo being flamboyant, likable, and having money, that wasn't too hard for him to do. But he still had to tread lightly. Washington, D.C. being Washington, D.C., local dealers wasn't exactly welcoming to outsiders. Now Alpo making moves and making money in D.C. would garner him a lot of attention. But this time, the type of attention he didn't want. One day, at a car wash, Alpo would be the victim of what he would call an attempted kidnapping.
They was gonna try to kidnap me, and I wound up getting hit that day.
You wound up getting hit?
Yeah, I wound up getting hit in my ribs. And the only thing that saved me, like I said, the only thing that saved me that day, because I was going to get this girl, the only thing that saved me that day was that as I'm talking to this dude, he looks over my shoulder. And when he looked over my shoulder, I followed his eyes. And when I followed his eyes, I seen about 4 dudes coming to try to grab me.
Okay.
And I start running. Next thing I know, I feel bullets and all that coming past my head and hitting off the wall and all that. And one caught me in the ribs.
He would escape, but not without catching a bullet to the ribs. It was said that this incident changed Alpo. Now obviously he always had the propensity for violence, but he quickly understood that he had to go on the offensive to instill fear in opposing crews in Washington, D.C. And Wayne Perry would be his main weapon. But before we get to Wayne, Big Head Gary. Gary and Alpo had an associate they did business with by the name of Andre Tank Johnson. Now Andre was having a relationship with Gary's girlfriend and mother of his child. And in a heated argument between Gary and the mother of his child, his girlfriend, she would tell Gary about the relationship.
This nigga Tank messing with my girl. This and that, man, I'm going to step to him. He know that's my people and all that. I said, hold up, Gary, let me. And my man Gary was like, yo, that shit, he was ready to just take him out. So, because he knew that was Gary's baby mother, and you didn't do that.
Right.
Now, Gary would arrange a meeting with Andre. He would then confront him about it. They would actually come to an understanding and then shake hands on it for the time being. But it didn't take long until Gary and his girlfriend would get into another argument. And this time, she would not only claim she's still having sex with Andre, but she's also pregnant by him.
Kid Andre got to die, man. Check this out. Dude doing it again, man. He's still seeing Caprice and this and that. I said, all right, man. He said, man, this time I want to talk to him. So I said, all right, no problem. So I had a deal with the kid Andre for about 270.
Okay.
About 270,000 this day. He wanted some drugs. So I said, yo, we killed two birds with one stone. I'm going to meet him, take care of this business with him, and you can talk to him at the same time.
Okay.
So I go meet the kid.
Produced by
We go meet the kid at my favorite spot over there, Minnesota and Pennsylvania Avenue, over there by the Amber. I told Gary, I said, just chill, man. Let me go talk to him. I had my 5.0 this day. I said, let me go talk to him, and then you come. So I got into the truck. I told the kid, Andre, I said, what's up, man? I said, everything all right? He said, yeah. I said, well, what's going on, man? You bad? He said, nah, this and that. So my man Gary, here come my man Gary. As I'm talking to the kid Andre jumped into the back of the caravan to go get the money out and all that.
Okay.
And I was over in the passenger seat. So my man Gary, he comes from out my car, which he was in the passenger seat, and comes around through the driver's side to the empty seat. So the kid Andre is coming from the back seat to the middle seat now with the bag of money. So as soon as the kid Andre turns around to look at me and let me know that the bag that my man Gary is coming in the car and hit him right in the head. Boom! My man Gary was strapped all the time.
You heard him. One shot to the head. His body was then dumped in an alley. He would soon be found, and his best friend and father would have to go identify him.
Cut the bullshit. Alpo Rat is a jealous bitch ass nigga. You feel me? He's jealous. And he want the spotlight.
Now, in very karmic fashion, Gary would meet the same fate. His relationship with Alpo would sour because of alleged disrespect, and Gary plotting to double-cross Alpo. Now, Alpo, with the help of Wayne Perry, would line Gary up to meet his death in almost identical fashion to the Rich Porter murder.
We get a little revolver out of the stash, and I give it to the dudes that's sitting in back of my man Gary. So my man Gary, he's in the middle, but he don't know that we done slipped the revolver to the back to the kid who's gonna hit him in the head. We ran for about 5-10 minutes after we get the gas. Bang! My man hit him. I give the signal through the rearview mirror. My man hit him with the revolver, 2 in the head. All you hear is, ugh.
Up next is 27-year-old Demencio Benson, aka Montana. Now, Demencio was a Brooklyn dealer, very popular and well-known dude. And like Alpo, he expanded his operation from New York City to Washington, D.C. Now, the feud between Alpo and Demencio was a little bit different. It was personal. Demencio being the playboy he was known to be, there was a rumor that he had an affair with Alpo's wife. And as you would imagine, this didn't sit well with Alpo. And to make matters worse, Mike Tyson, who was close friends with Demencio Benson, was also allegedly trying to get in on the action.
I remember we was going to almost kill Mike Tyson, I know that.
Since you almost gonna kill Mike Tyson?
Yeah.
Why was that?
Because the Demencio guy used to hang out with Mike Tyson.
Okay.
And one night we seen him in D.C., but we thought it was him.
Okay.
And the guy that was with Mike looked like Demencio, so we ran down on the joint, but they never even seen us coming. And when I seen it wasn't Demencio, we just backed up off it.
And it was Mike Tyson?
Yeah, it was Mike Tyson and another cat that looked like Demencio.
Okay.
But if Demencio was in that car, Mike Tyson wouldn't have to worry about these problems he's having right now. Because I already had a thing with him too, because he used to try to talk to my wife also. Okay. And just always had something slick to say, like, because he was getting, his money was coming legit, and he was getting it, so he always had something slick to say.
Well, it. It's a fight, so whatever happens, happens.
July 19th, 1991. At the 1400 block on 7th Street, there's a basketball game. And at that basketball court, Alpo and Demencio are both in attendance. Alpo approaches Demencio. They have a quick conversation, and then they shake hands. As they're shaking hands, someone approaches Demencio.
As I was shaking his hand, they walked right on over and put the gun right to his forehead and blasted him.
Was it in the daytime?
Yeah, daytime. Broad day, after a basketball game. I just got finished playing basketball in a basketball tournament.
Next up, Michael Frey Salters, one of the most respected and well-known hustlers in DC. Now, Frey was an old-school hustler, one who liked order and structure and was already well established. and really wasn't a fan of outsiders, especially loud and brash outsiders like Alpo. Frey was one of the first DC dealers that challenged Alpo. It's alleged that Frey took drugs from Alpo and dared him to do something about it. And he also had connects in New York City to whom he reached out to concerning Alpo. And to no surprise, a lot of them didn't really have good things to say about Alpo. Now Frey felt secure in his city and had good reason to feel that way because of all the respect he had. And he moved cautiously. But where there's a will, there's a way. And Alpo wanted Frey out of his way, and he put that plan in motion.
Just left for that. Why'd you kill Michael Frey? Michael Frey was someone who was about to get back in position in D.C., and he had a little cleanup list of people who he needed to eliminate for him to be back in power like that again. And I was the first one at the top of his list. Okay. To get rid of me, and how I found out about that is that he didn't know I was feeding somebody in his camp. I was looking out for somebody in his camp because he couldn't take care of him, and they got the information back to my man, and my man got it to me, and that same person that was in his camp wound up killing him for me. Okay.
Now that somebody is Michael Jackson. And no, not the Michael Jackson we all know. His name was Michael Anthony Jackson, a hustler and known killer in DC. See, Michael Jackson didn't randomly just reach out to Alpo. He was already playing both sides and was very familiar with Wayne Perry and Alpo.
Kid Michael Jackson, he was there. He once did the old untouchable joints. They was going after one kid, and this kid was walking in the sidewalk. Michael Jackson was in the car. He whistled at the kid, like gave the kid a whistle. Then when the kid turned around, he said bye-bye and killed him right there.
July 16th, 1991, Michael Jackson arranged a meeting with Frey on 1st and Bryant Streets, Northwest. Frey would be at the meeting spot first, when a man, who people would come to identify as Michael Jackson, would pull up and open fire on Frey. He would be rushed to the hospital, but he would later be pronounced dead. The Michael Frey and Demencio killings would only be days apart, and the mayhem still wasn't done yet. That same week, July 20th, 1991, around midnight, after a Keith Sweat concert at Constitutional Hall, only 2 blocks away from the White House, a young woman by the name of Evelyn Carter was walking along 18th and F Streets, Northwest. She was with friends when she was approached by a man who then presented a handgun and opened fire. She would be taken to the hospital by police in a cruiser. She would be pronounced dead by the morning. Now the police were confused as to if this was a random act of violence, considering this was a 20-year-old female with no police record. But turns out this was very targeted.
Thomas Dozier was the actual man who pulled the trigger on Evelyn Carter. That's kind of an interesting murder to tell the whole story about, and I'll go ahead and try to sort of explain it a little bit to you. But Perry had decided that Evelyn Carter needed to go, but he also decided that he needed to get this guy, Thomas Dozier, who had been a cellmate of his in Lorton Penitentiary, to prove himself. So he gave Dozier a gun and told him to go kill Evelyn Carter, who was going to a concert at the DAR Constitution Hall, like 2 blocks from the White House. And so Dozier waited for Carter to leave the Constitution Hall concert, walked up to her on the street, and shot her a couple of times in her upper torso. And she just fell away from him and, fell down on the sidewalk and started to bleed out. He sort of waited around to see what would happen because Perry had said, make sure that you kill her. And the ambulance came and took her away. And so he went and told Perry that. Perry said, well, you didn't shoot her in the head? And Dozier said, well, I shot her. She's dead. He says, but you didn't see her die. You didn't see her, you didn't put a bullet in her head. And he goes, well, no. And Perry got angry and upset with him and started yelling at him. He says, you can't kill anybody unless you shoot him in the head. And he walked up to a man, just a bystander, who they had no connection with, who happened to be talking on a public telephone, and just shot him in the head. and said, "This is how you kill somebody."
A couple months later, another female would be found on the northbound shoulder of I-295 near Pennsylvania Avenue, southeast. She would be identified as 24-year-old Yolanda Michelle Burley. She was found riddled with bullets. She was also a female who was doing a little too much talking about a separate incident. That would also be the work of Wayne Perry.
It was a female in D.C. Okay. And she was supposedly a person that was giving information to the police about certain individuals. And she was with someone. She was with someone one night when my man killed this kid. My man Wayne killed this kid. The kid throws her in a yoke, a dolphin yoke, and chokes her out, right? So then he backs one of the hoopties up into the parking lot, and they throw her in the back seat of the car. So when she wakes up, she finds out that she realized that she in this car with this dude that's about to murder her. Right. So my man, Wayne, he puts the tape in. He killing this up over some. He got some music playing, so he throws in a bitch is a bitch. I think who was that by Easy or something? Yeah. Easy, right? Right. He throw that joint. A bitch is a bitch. And as he's killing her, he playing the joint. A bitch is a bitch. Now he didn't just kill her. What he did was first he stabbed her several times because sometimes we couldn't get into the spot. Sometimes we didn't want to carry pistols all the time. We couldn't get into the spots all the time. So we bought some nice switchblades. Right. Some nice sharp blades in case we had to stab somebody, we get up out of there. Right. So he had one of those knives with him. So he stabbed her several times first in the back seat. All in the face, in the head, in the body. He stabbed her several times first. Then he shot her like 4 or 5 times. Because this was testified against him, but he beat the case. Okay. But he beat the case. Yeah, so her brains and everything was splattered all in the back seat. So after he did that, we dumped her on this joint out in D.C. called 295, which is a highway. Okay. That's why they started getting it the 295 murders or something. Okay. So that was she was one of the...
Now in Alpo's small band of killers, the youngest was Shelton Cortez Walker, aka Shorty Pop. Just 15 when meeting Alpo, but was already a seasoned criminal and killer. By the time this young man was only 17, the DC police and FBI were actively looking for him, and the police chief, Isaac Fullwood Jr., would identify him as the most wanted fugitive in the city because of his brazen killings. Shelton was wanted on murder charges in connection of 2 slayings in the district. The 1987 slaying of 29-year-old Tony Kenyon, who was shot in the chest in the 3300 block of 14th Place, Southeast, and also the killing of a local hustler, Matthew Blake. Matthew was well known and liked in his community. He was killed on the 1300 block of Camden Street, Southeast. Shelton was also charged with assault with intent to kill in a separate incident, and also charged with a murder and rape in connection with a 1988 slaying of Andre Smith at the Crystal Skate Rink on Branch Avenue. Oh, and remember the Demencio Benson killing? The handshake murder on the basketball court that happened in broad daylight? Yep, that was Shelton as well. The Matthew Blake hit was allegedly ordered by Alpo as well. Shelton was a member of a go-go band called the Junkyard Band as a kid. They were even signed to Def Jam in the mid-80s. But Shelton, coming from an abusive and neglectful home, the streets became his home, and he quickly earned a violent reputation. Shelton would actually be the one to introduce Alpo to Wayne Perry.
My little man Pop, I was introduced to him by some other cats, and he was a young, wild 15-year-old kid coming out Southeast that was killing anything moving. And he just wanted to be up under somebody that was going to look out for him. So I wound up taking him up under my wing and looking out for him, and through him I wound up meeting another cat named Wayne Perry. Now this kid here, I mean, he had to count a lot.
Now while Alpo and his crew was outside wreaking havoc, the feds were slowly building a case. They were building a strong drug case against Alpo. He was actually stopped and approached by police on multiple occasions, but he would bolt every time, being successful every time, up until November 6, 1991. The police had gotten information that Alpo was in an apartment in Southwest DC. There was one cop in particular. His name was Angelo Parisi. This was the guy who was hot on Alpo's heels. Now, Alpo and his wife at the time, Natasha Roland Martinez, would get into a vehicle. Luckily for the police, she would get in the driver's seat. They would make their way to Pennsylvania and Minnesota Avenue. They would get not too far from a freeway on-ramp. After being pulled over on what they thought was a routine stop, would quickly turn into chaos. Alpo would be ordered out of the vehicle, and he was compliant at first. But when he realized what was happening, he then told the officer that he's going back in his vehicle to get his driver's license. Alpo would turn around and lunge into the car. The officer he was speaking to was Detective Parisi, who Alpo actually knows. They've met before. Parisi, thinking Alpo was reaching for a gun, jumps on top of Alpo. Alpo was actually trying to put the vehicle in drive. His wife would get it into neutral as she's revving the gas at like 100 miles per hour. A uniformed officer would run to the driver's side of the vehicle and snatch her out of the window, putting her under arrest. Eventually, Alpo was also put in cuffs. At that point, he was compliant. And there you have it. The mighty Alpo was in custody, being charged with running a continuing criminal enterprise and distribution of cocaine. Now this photo right here would be his infamous mugshot of when he got arrested by the FBI that day. In my personal opinion, this photo tells you everything you need to know about Alpo. Everything in one shot. Happy-go-lucky, jovial, and fucking treacherous. Prosecutors revealed that his operation had trafficked more than 1,200 pounds of cocaine from New York to DC. Alpo was looking at life with the drug charges alone. And when you add in the murders, you're looking at possibly the needle, which they were pursuing. Alpo now had a choice to make. Keep it gangster and keep his mouth shut and die behind bars, or in a gurney, or cooperate and possibly taste freedom again one day. Alpo's testimony would lead to 15 to 20 drug dealers being taken off the street of Washington, D.C. alone.
And so my lawyer was like, look, you really need to make a decision. And I was trying to fight them. I was going through all the preliminaries as far as what kind of evidence they had on me, what their case was. I was really taking it to the point where I'm going to see if I can fight these people. And my lawyer was like, look, your ace in the hole is if they ever ask you to tell, you really need to think about that. And that wasn't until like 8, 9, almost a year later that I decided to do that. So my lawyer came back at me and was like, look, they trying to make a deal, man. They really want Wayne Perry. They want you, but they also want Wayne Perry. And if you got anything good on Wayne Perry, they're willing to make a deal with you. So I was like the less of two evils. Me and Wayne, we were both evil to them, but I was the less. Right. Evil one, like, we can sleep with him, but we can't do nothing with Wayne Perry. Right. We got to prosecute one of them, so I'd rather us prosecute Wayne Perry. But then when them crackers wanted me, they put the full court press on me. We gonna hit you with the death penalty. We know we got you for this murder. We got you for that murder. This is the capital punishment right here. We gonna get you. I'm sitting up in there like, yo, the hell am I gonna do? And I'm talking to my lawyer. My lawyer like, yo, your ace in the hole is Wayne Perry because they asking about him and this and that. I'm saying, yo, we not going there right now. Here's 70, 80,000. Let's get this thing rolling and all that. And then they started bringing in the wife, talking about going to mess with Mama Duke and the sister and the niece. I said, hold. Let's talk for a minute. What you want?
Wayne Perry will be convicted of multiple counts of murder and a continuing criminal enterprise. He was sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Shelton would be killed in 1992 outside a nightclub while out on bail at only the age of 19. Michael Anthony Jackson would be indicted along with Wayne Perry and receive a life sentence of his own. And as far as Alpo, since he cooperated, he would receive a 35-year sentence, and with good behavior, he was eligible for parole as early as 2015. Now, somebody being sentenced to 35 years to life, you would think that's the end of their story, or at least the end of them being in the limelight, especially having that snitch or rat title, but not Alpo. And
Alpo. Yes.
Okay.
You have the book.
Oh, thank you, Alpo.
And to be fair, he didn't remain relevant by himself. Pop culture didn't let his legacy die. From the movie Paid in Full, who Cameron played his character, and countless artists mentioning his name, Alpo became an enigma, almost a mythical figure. And then when he thought Alpo's name was gonna fade away into oblivion, February 2018, Harlem.
Yo. Hold on, I'm calling you back, Hold on, he better come on right now. He come on right now, look. Shit, don't sit down.
Let's go, let the pancakes go, man. Come on.
Yeah. You don't want to let that shit go.
Bring them with you.
Put them in your pocket. Put them in your pocket. Yo, what you wanted though?
Now, there was sightings of Alpo and a lot of talk about him being back in Harlem, which a lot of people didn't believe. But because of good old social media, it was quickly understood that these weren't just rumors. He was back and he wasn't hiding. Alpo was released from ADX Florence, a federal supermax prison in Colorado, where housed individuals like El Chapo Guzman, Jahar Tsarnaev, one of the Boston bombers. It's also home to Alpo's former associate, Wayne Perry, till this day. Alpo was able to walk away from that place in 2015. He was put in WITSEC, aka Witness Protection, under the name of Abraham Rodriguez. He was then relocated to Lewiston, Maine, where he was known as simply Abraham by his neighbors. But Alpo being Alpo, this little town of just 40,000 people and quiet lifestyle wouldn't last. Harlem kept calling, and he would most definitely answer. He would have it his way for a while. A lot of people knew he was back, and as you would expect, a few had a problem with that, to say the least.
He was being places where if I hadn't been, I went and they'd be like, yo, you know, and I'm like, wow, like I just prayed to never bump into him.
That's where he go eat at. So I'm thinking he go there eating often. So I goes up there here and there. Every chance I get, I'm going up there.
So you're actually looking for him?
Yeah, I'm going up there.
Okay, so what would happen if you guys ran into each other?
Man, cut it, man.
Alpo was living life on his terms. He eventually packed up completely and moved back to New York City. In 2020, tragedy would strike as he would lose his mother and sister to illness back to back in that very year. Close friends would say that this deeply saddened Alpo, and he wasn't his regular self, more quiet and withdrawn, and not as upbeat, but he was still outside and active. Fast forward to October 31st, 2021, Halloween night, Alpo would attend a party in the city. At about 3 a.m., Alpo would leave the party on West 147th Street and Frederick Douglass Boulevard and entered into his red Dodge Ram. Just around 3:20 a.m., someone then approached the vehicle.
This notorious drug lord, Alpo Martinez, shot and killed on the streets of Harlem. He was a larger-than-life figure who seemed to defy death. Fox 5's Lisa Evers goes over who he was and why he might have had a long list of enemies.
He was one of the city's most notorious drug dealers, famous since the 1980s for his murderous ways and mountains of cash and drugs, immortalized in dozens of rap songs and the movie Paid in Full. But it all came to an end for Alpo Martinez right here on the streets of Harlem, right where it all began. These are exclusive photos of Alberto Alpo Martinez on previous visits to Harlem in recent years. But his latest visit turned out to be his last. On Sunday about 3:20 a.m., police were called to Frederick Douglass Boulevard near West 147th Street. A dark red pickup truck crashed into parked cars. The driver was shot 5 times in the chest through the car window and killed.
I heard 5 shots, 1 and then 4 consecutive shots after that.
It was Alpo, but his driver's license and other IDs had his witness protection name of Abraham Rodriguez with a Lewiston, Maine address. The murder scene stretched for blocks up to 151st Street. Alpo had been given a new identity when he was released from a Colorado supermax prison in 2015 after serving more than 20 years for 14 murders. But instead of lying low, he couldn't seem to stay away from New York.
He's been seen riding around Harlem most of the time. he's been seen down in Harlem a lot.
In addition to the murder convictions, Alpo was widely believed to have turned on many of his former associates in order to shave years off what could have been a life sentence. There is no shortage of people who may have wanted payback. Sources tell me that Alpo may have been shot while sitting in his car further down the block and then tried to drive away to escape. Investigators will be looking at forensic evidence as well as surveillance video to get a clearer picture of what really happened. In Harlem, I'm Lisa Evers, Fox 5 News.
He was rushed to Harlem Hospital Center. Alberto Geddes Martinez, aka Alpo, was pronounced dead on arrival. And there you have it, a violent death for a man who lived a violent life. Now, of course, a lot of speculations would be made about this killing. Retribution for his past was first on the list, a family member of one of his victims, or an old associate he crossed. But shockingly, the individual accused wasn't even born when Alpo was wreaking havoc in the streets. Meet 27-year-old Shaquem Parker, who law enforcement believed stalked and followed Alpo after he saw his truck on Frederick Douglass Boulevard. And Alpo's truck being red and lifted, you can't miss it. It's alleged that he opportunistically approached the vehicle and opened fire, striking Alpo in the arm and chin. But one of the rounds is what laid the fatal blow. It went through his arm and hit him in the heart. It is said the motive stemmed from a road rage incident where Alpo almost hit Shaquem Parker with his bike. You hear different versions of the story. And not only that, but there was also a rumor that Alpo was having an affair with a young woman who was in a relationship with Shaquem Parker. Either way, Alpo was gone, Shaquem Parker was in custody and charged, and the official report was it stemmed over the road rage incident. It was also said that Alpo was throwing drugs out of the window as he was trying to make his getaway, right before he lost consciousness. Yeah, he was back in the game. Now, as you would expect, a lot of people felt strongly about this news, and some were a little bit more outspoken than others.
Yeah, they got that nigga. Harlem rat dead. Look at this whip. Alpo dead.
He came out, thought shit was sweet, riding around in Harlem, whatever. They slumped him, you feel me? It is what it is. All that crying, don't need the crying and whining now, nigga. You live by the gun, we die by the gun. You feel me? He got caught slipping. He thought he was the king of Harlem. Wrong answer. Too arrogant, wrong answer. Man, fuck him. I wish I was behind the trigger of that nigga death, for real. And that's on everything. But like I said, it is what it is. It's done. It's said. He gone. But it don't pay to be a rat. Nigga rat, sold his friends out, crossed all his best friends, turned to a government whore, sucked the government dick, did 30 years in jail, came on, then they pushed this shit back. Come on, man. You fucked up all around the board, man. So all you rat lovers, go to your rat lover funeral, cry for him and moan for him, you bitch ass rat loving ass niggas. Like I said, man, enough talking about that rat ass nigga. Kill all the rest and still promote.
In a sense.
So you guys actually celebrated and drank champagne and the whole night?
Yes, we did.
Good for you.
You know, it's a burden.
Yeah, of course.
I never wanted to see him. I despised people that were receiving him. And I felt like before this man arrived, y'all loyalty stood with my brother. Y'all don't ever have to worry about me again.
Alpo killed himself to me, bro. He killed himself, bro. He didn't accept the loss. You lost in the game. They put you in Maine, gave you a decent job. If it was me, if the shoe was on my foot, I would have stayed in Maine, worked my job, and stayed away from that world, period, bro.
This photo right here would be the last photo taken of Alpo while he was alive. Him in a Louis Vuitton Jason mask. Man, you can't make this up. Alpo would die at the age of 55 in his hometown of Harlem after wreaking havoc in the streets and helping destroy a lot of lives in his youth. He could have quietly lived out the rest of his life in the witness protection program, but he decided to live his life the way he wanted to, fearlessly willing to accept whatever consequences came with being in the limelight. Call him a rat, snitch, a snake, or whatever else you choose, but he will go down as the most infamous criminal out of Harlem. Alpo's legacy is one of betrayal, lies, and death. Now his story has made it to Hollywood, as we know with the movie Paid in Full that premiered in 2002. But over the years, countless documentaries were made about Alpo's story. And just recently, 50 Cent announced he has a Paid in Full series show in the works, with Cameron himself as the executive producer. It's safe to say this story isn't gonna die no time soon. It's gonna be told and retold.
I ain't snitching on nobody from Harlem, man. I give you a couple cats down in DC doing their thing, out of town doing their thing, but I'm not snitching on nobody in Harlem, cause when I come home, I'm still gonna be the king.
Now, in the beginning of this video, I did talk about Alpo being a product of his environment and the part the US government played in allowing drugs to do damage in the black community. And this is important to touch on. You see, Alpo's story, to me, is bigger than him. He's a product of a much larger system that produced him. The same way it produced a Wayne Perry, the same way it produced a Shelton, the same way it produced a Michael Jackson. Now, in no way am I excusing the behavior and actions of these men. They all deserved what they got in the end. All I'm saying is, good old America have always done a good job in playing a role in producing the very criminal elements they demonize. We could even go back 100 years ago when it was Italians and Jews coming off those boats by the thousands to live in tenements. These communities were no stranger to extreme poverty, neglect, and prejudice. Ever heard of the Padrone system? This was a labor arrangement that exploited young Italian boys, some as young as 5 years old. Many poor Italians, usually living in southern Italy, would send their sons to work in the United States with promise of job placement and housing. Now, even though this did help a lot of Italian families, the Padrone system was a system that was plagued with abuse that a lot of young boys, young Italian boys, had to endure. The Jews didn't have an easy ride either. They faced serious anti-Semitic discrimination and violence. They were also barred from social clubs, housing, and certain jobs. You see, these circumstances historically have always been a formula for criminal activity. Criminal activity that went on to literally produce some of the most prolific criminals America has ever seen. You see, in my opinion, the same way America have no problem claiming Michael Phelps, Michael Jordan, or Michael Jackson, the real one this time, you need to claim your Al Capones, your Bugsy Siegels, and your Alpos. Like Malcolm X said,
the chickens came home to roost.
Yep, they always come the fuck home to roost. You see, the saying, you reap what you sow, is not just on an individual level. As a community, you reap what you sow. And as far as Alpo and his story, you know how they say crime doesn't pay? That's not true. It pays. Crime definitely pays. But you see, the thing about crime, you gotta pay it the fuck back in the end. In some way, shape, or form. Either with your freedom or your life. And in some cases, both. To all the young people out there, especially young men, young black and brown men, understand something. All these prisons that are being built across the United States of America, these people ain't building these prisons for their own. They're targeting a certain demographic, and a lot of us are playing right into their hand. Understand what's going on. The streets is dead. The streets is a myth. The streets is a lie. This is 2025. This idea of some code, the street code, is bullshit. Alpo even said it himself.
Look, listen, you do what you got to do. I don't promote being a rat government witness. I promote do you. Because the code of the streets, that's where you're going to get fucked up at. Because there is no code.
There is no code. There isn't. Stay your fucking ass out them streets. That's why they got sidewalks. Oh, and by the way, Shaquem Parker, that young man who got charged for Alpo's killing, his charges got dropped in July of 2024. He's now a free man.